Well, good luck to mother-in-law. We'll continue this conversation coming up after the news.
Neighbour, everybody needs good neighbour.
Well, it's nice to have good neighbours, but can you think of a more unholy row than you having the right to block your neighbour's extension, or the other way round? They have the right to stop you building in the garage. That's what's been proposed. We'll look in more detail after the 9:31 news. You'll listen to Breakfast with Nick Ferrari on LBC News. Simon Conway.
The Levelling Up Secretary Michael Gove has rejected calls for an emergency budget to help people in the cost of living crisis. Boris Johnson said yesterday that ministers would be saying more in the days to come about support for struggling households. There's concern for two 11-year-old sisters who've disappeared in Leicestershire. Twins Gracie and Millie Bennett were reported missing from their home in Mount Sorrel at 8:30 last night. A journalist for Al Jazeera has been shot dead while covering an Israeli raid in the West Bank. Shireen Abu Akleh was among two reporters hit in the town of Jenin. The broadcaster has blamed Israeli forces, but Israel says it's investigating the possibility that they were hit by Palestinian gunmen. LBC weather, rain in England and Wales should clear to sunny spells, except in the Far East and South East. A mix of sunshine and showers for Scotland and Northern Ireland, a high of 17 degrees.
This is LBC.
Collect a 25,000 Avios welcome bonus with the new Barclaycard Avios Plus. $72.4% APR representative variable. Purchase rate per annum 23.9% variable. Based on a credit limit of £1,200. £20 monthly fee. Subject to application and financial status. Eligibility and conditions apply. Welcome bonus for new customers only.
So you want a great new car with Dazzle. Choose online. We'll deliver it for free so you can save your time. Every car includes a warranty. That's what we do. And we guarantee you'll love it. We'll give your money back to you.
Whether you're buying online or through our trusted dealers, feel good your way with Hey Car. T's and C's apply.
The Podcast Show 2022 is coming to Islington, London, May 25th and 26th, where the international world of podcasting awaits you. Featuring world-class speakers, Johnny Vaughan, Emily Maitlis, Elizabeth Day, and hundreds more, as well as the biggest brands and unmissable live shows. Day passes on sale now. Use promo code GLOBAL and get 20% off. Book yours now at thepodcastshowlondon.com.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Well, we've just heard that Alexandra's mother-in-law is in 6 days a week in overtime at the passport office. What about the DVLA? Let's talk to Lee in Norwich. Are you having problems, Lee? Good morning.
Good morning, Nick. Yeah, I'm having massive problems with the DVLA since the start of 2021, I believe. Sorry, I'm just trying to find my driver's license. Yeah, so I have chronic obstructive sleep disorder.
Chronic obstructive
sleep apnea. Sorry,
sleep apnea.
My brain
Right.
is not
Okay.
working. So I suffer with mental health problems, and my brain's a bit foggy. So you're
Okay,
with me.
all right, no
Yeah,
problem.
thank you. Yeah. So I have one of the CPAP machines. What
You have a what?
a CPAP machine, the one that you wear overnight. It's like continuous pressure air thing.
Okay.
So
it's like a mask, is it? Is it effectively like a mask you put on or something?
Yeah. So it stops you from like not breathing at night and like unconsciously waking up and just leaving your sleep patterns. Yeah. So yeah, I discovered my best night's sleep for the first time ever when I first got that. But anyway. And because of that, you have to declare it with the DVLA because it's a medical issue, and you have to get like medical, like every year. So I applied just after my birthday in 2021, which is at the end of January.
Yeah.
And I haven't heard.
Now, what does this mean legally? Can you still drive?
I can't drive. No, I cannot drive at all. And
because your insurance is invalidate, because you'll be an illegal driver.
Luckily, I don't have a car, but it has an impact on my parents. It has an impact on my parents because my mum and dad have a mobility car, and my mum's hip is fused. So whenever I'm back there, in order to help, of course I do. I mean,
go down the shops. I've got it.
I go down the shops. I basically chauffeur them. Give them a bit of pampering while I'm there. I can't do that.
Quite right too. And have you tried to call? Have you tried to call the DVO? I bet this will be fun. Have you ever tried to call them?
Oh, multiple times, and I get about a minute in, and then it says all the phone lines are busy. Goodbye, and then hangs up. I've tried emailing.
Have you ever spoken to a human being?
No, not since.
And this has been going on since this has been actually virtually 18 months. This has been going on.
Yeah, and I tried to contact my MP, and I never got a response to that either. So I'm stumped at the moment.
Okay. People who say, but it's nothing to do with working from home. It's because there are too many people trying to get driving licenses or whatever. What would you say?
Well, what I'd say to that is, before the lockdown, yes, you had to wait a long time in order to speak to someone, but at least the phone lines were open. Now they aren't. So it's just like, well, how can you even see how your application is going if you can't talk to anyone or even check online?
Lee, thank you for that. I do hope the situation improves. I don't quite see how it will, but let's go to other matters and a show which I think now is coming to an end. First airing in 1985.
Everybody needs a good neighbor with a little understanding. You can find the perfect place.
Stanley, wouldn't you? If your dream was to extend your house or build in the garage or put a driveway in or whatever, and the plans were nixed, were knocked back because your neighbour didn't like it. Again, we go to the Queen's speech. Neighbours will be allowed to hold referendums about the style and size of extensions, new homes and developments and conversions on their streets. Under plans yesterday, there could be a street vote. Oh, my God. On whether to allow more loft conversions or conservatories. They want to encourage more intensive development by allowing residents to increase the value of their own homes. Well, that's what it says here. Let's go to an expert in the field. Melissa Lawford is property correspondent at the Daily Telegraph, joins me now. This headline, to me, could foretell of enormous neighbourly disputes. You're a professional in the field. What do you make of it? Good morning.
Good morning, Nick. Hi. Street votes. The government's proposal here, their aim is to sort of streamline the planning process, and their argument is that this street vote should be quicker than the current system of planning, which is more dependent on the council and neighbours' complaints about proposals, and then the council makes the decision. So their argument is that this should be much faster and should let people convert and extend their homes much more quickly. I'm very sceptical about what this will look like in practice. I think anyone who's had much dealing with their neighbours imagine that this will be a quick process, like a lot of bureaucracy to me, and as you say, could trigger some quite neighbourly disputes.
Oh, yeah. I mean, just imagine, I'm blessed. I've got I've only got a neighbour on one side, fantastic neighbour. If the atmosphere is toxic already, and then you see the opportunity to block next door's drive or next day's extension or pushing into the loft, you're going to do it, aren't you?
Yes, we might get some fun stories coming out of this.
I think we will.
I mean, my opinion as well is I think that this policy overlooks full of other things that are major barriers to home improvement. And one of the soaring cost of materials and labour at the moment. It'd be very well if you can get permission to do it, but actually putting it into practice is held up by quite a lot of other issues in the supply chain right now.
Let's talk lastly about one other housing issue that was also touched on yesterday. Renters will be protected from no-fault evictions under proposals heard yesterday. The Renters Reform Bill will abolish the so-called Section 21 notices, which came about as part of the Housing Act of 1988. OK, a couple of questions. Melissa, what is a Section 21 notice? Who brings it about and what does it mean?
Right. So when a landlord wants to get repossession of property at the moment, they've currently got two routes. They use Section 8, which means that the tenant has breached terms of the agreement, maybe they're not paying rent, or they've broken another part of the agreement. And that route is quite complex. They have the court and they have to prove that the tenant is at fault. So the other route is Section 21, which is no fault, which means they don't need to prove anything. It's a much quicker process, and they can regain possession of the property much. This is generally the preferred option for landlords who want to get their properties back. side is it means that tenants have very few rights. Their tenancy is very insecure, and this is a key driver of homelessness. It's a big problem. The end of tenancy agreements is one of the biggest reasons why households become homeless in this.
Where is a landlord? Sorry to talk over you a minute. So where is a landlord if she wants to regain their property because they want to move in themselves?
Yeah, they probably normally use Section 21 in that situation.
What will they do now?
Well, I mean, this is the question. And there was something in the policy documents yesterday. They were talking about reforming possession grounds and make it, the hope is there won't be a complete policy vacuum if these no fault of landlords are very, very worried right now. And because there is a lot of fear about losing possession rights, see, I'm a bit worried that this policy could backfire in a couple of ways. You know, I'm talking to landlords who are evicting because they're worried that further down the line they're not going to be able to, and they're becoming much more picky about the tenants that they choose.
Okay, the line is dropping a little bit. Melissa, thank you. I hope you can hear me. Melissa Lawford is property correspondent at the Daily Telegraph. If you are, and we've talked before about what I think is desperately unfair criticism levelled at most landlords, of course, with some you've got bad landlords, but in many instances, and we've talked about this before, I think around 60% of the letting market, the rental market, is made up of people who have two properties or fewer. So, of course, you'll have rapacious landlords making people live in appalling circumstances, and you want the full weight of Her Majesty's law to come down on them. But this instance where it would appear, it's very possible. You met your husband, you met your boyfriend, you met your wife, met whatever. You both had houses or flats, and you thought, I'll tell you what, we'll move into yours, and I'll move into yours, and why don't we rent mine, and that will get us a few quid, and it'll be our pension. And then when you want to realise it, you want to flog it. Well, under my understanding, and it would seem from Melissa as well, but we battled a little bit to hear what she said, you're not going to be able to get the tenants out. That cannot be fair. Honestly, who would be a landlord at the moment? Who would be an employer when you can't even get the staff to work, is what I say. David in Kidderminster, talk to me about the Passport Office. Good morning.
Good morning, Nick. How are you? You're fighting all the fields. So good news, and I think it's the fact that all our listeners here know this. I had an appointment at Peterborough Passport Office. Fantastic service. Went in, got my passport. They said they'd give it to me this Thursday coming, but they phoned me on Friday, said, this is Friday gone. 2 days later, can you come up and pick your passport? I think, as long as everything...
Oh, I think okay, David. It's worked, is what I'm going to take. And I'm really pleased for you. I have to say, I don't think it's the case for everyone. We're having a bit of problems with the lines. Let's see how we do with Kelly in Romford. Kelly, you're on the radio. Good morning.
Hi, hello. Hi.
Hello.
Can you hear me okay? Yeah?
I hear you perfectly. I'm filled with confidence. I think we're going to get through this call. Go ahead, Kelly.
Brilliant. I normally agree with you on a lot of your opinions, but the working from home one is the one you refuse to budge my way with, got to say. So on this one, I want to make a few points, try and get through them, I'll try and be quick. Okay, so after wars, when women started coming to the world wars, when women started coming in and working because the men were at war, we didn't send all the women back home and say, sorry, you're now chained to the kitchen sink. So when there's a big change, and the pandemic is a big change, we were forced into a different working environment, and I think we need to move with that change. And I think a lot of your points, like firemen can't. My stepdad was firemen, no, they can't work from home unless they're going to put a fire out in a litter bin. They can't work from home. But that is their choice. And a lot of the time, people that choose jobs that can't work from home are happy because they don't want to work in an office. They don't want to work in their back room.
Well, as long as they don't mind being the underclass who don't get to sit in their back gardens.
I don't know why you bring class into it. I was going to I work from home. I don't get that point.
As in someone who is at manager level, or who is not sweeping the streets, or who is not driving a truck, they can sit at home 2, 3, 4, 5 days a week in their back garden in the nice weather. Meanwhile, the bus driver has to go out and drive his or her bus.
I work from home. I've never sat in my garden once and worked. You seem to seriously. My laptop and my video all set up on a desk in the back room. I can't move from there because once I tried to work in the garden once and it's funny. You can't see the laptop.
So we have tried.
It's impossible. It's impossible. You can't. But yeah, I'm going to be completely honest with you. But Nick, I work harder now than I ever worked. I start earlier, I finish earlier. It's fact. I start earlier, I finish earlier. I still meet my colleagues face to face. I go in on Zoom, on Teams. We go in every 2 weeks and we have a team meeting, and it's working fine, and it works for some roles, and it doesn't work for some roles. It doesn't work for some roles. Maybe it doesn't work in the passport office. I will concede that. Maybe it doesn't work in the DVLA. How do they make the documents when they're working from home? I'll concede that point, but you have to be role-based. It's job design. Can I make another point? Because you make a point about London
in a sentence, Kelly. Could you make it in a sentence? Your point.
No, I had a point about London waiting and tube train.
Go on. Just fairly brief, if you would.
Okay, so when we was all going, I was going up to the office before. I was in 104 degrees on the tube train sometimes with my nose stuck up someone's armpit. And TfL didn't care. They didn't care. I come into work once, someone told me I smelt, and no one cared in TfL about us. Why do you think people don't want to go back to the office? It's not the office. Once they get there, it's the travel, it's the tube trains, it's the commute is hard. No one can sit down. People can pay a fortune for a season ticket. So other things need to be considered.
Kelly, I must leave it there. Thank you for making that additional point. Safe working, whether you're in your home or wherever it might be. 9:46 LBC News headline. Simon Conway.
Michael Gove says there will not be an emergency budget to address the cost of living crisis. There's growing concern for 11-year-old twins who've disappeared from their home in Leicestershire. Elon Musk says he would reverse Donald Trump's ban from Twitter if he completes his takeover of the social media platform. LBC weather, rain gradually clearing to sunny spells and showers, a high of 17 degrees.
LBC Travel, I'm Joanne Webb. In London, the North Circular Road remains closed eastbound at Staples Corner following an accident. Westbound, only one lane is open, and there are severe delays in both directions and on the M1. In fact, those delays on the M1 about an hour long to the Staples Corner roundabout. Two problems on the M4. Firstly, westbound in Bridgend, there are queues to junction 35 at Pencoed. That's after an accident. And also eastbound on the M4 in Swansea, it's very busy to junction 43 at Llandarcy. The heavy rain means there's flooding on the motorway, so one lane's had to be closed. And in Cumbria on the M6, one lane's closed northbound at junction 41, and that's for the emergency repair works of potholes being filled in.
Coming up at 10 on LBC, James O'Brien.
If you were a close friend of the Queen, would you be encouraging her to step back from public life?
James O'Brien on LBC.
It doesn't matter which energy supplier you're with. Everyone's feeling the pressure right now. And if you're struggling with your energy bills, the British Gas Energy Trust is here with independent financial guidance and support. We've supported over 500,000 people since 2004. So whoever supplies your energy, if you need to talk, we're here for you. British Gas, here to solve. Search British Gas Energy Trust. Subject to eligibility.
Call Nick Ferrari now. 0345 6060 973 LBC.
Hold on to your mugs. EE's Full Fiber is here. New broadband that can handle anything. And whatever you think that means, times it by a zillion and dip it in chocolate. Because this broadband connects 100 devices in your home. Search EE Full Fiber.
18.3% UK availability. Check coverage at ee.co.uk.
Dell Technologies can help push your business further with small business month savings on top monitors and PCs with Windows 11 Pro. Plus offers on server, storage and cloud solutions. All with easy financing options through Dell Financial Services. Speak to a Dell Technologies advisor on 0800 085 4878 or visit dell.co.uk. That's 0800 085 4878 or visit dell.co.uk. Dell recommends Windows 11 Pro for business.
Get up and at it, as my mother used to say. Get moving. Get your skates on. Get your hair done in the race run. Get behind the wheel. Get picking up and dropping off. Get busy. Get deliveries done. And get home to see Mom. Whatever the mission, Enterprise Rent-A-Car helps over 100,000 every day.
Let's take a moment for that last Big Mac mouthful. You wish you could have that first bite feeling all over again. Well, luckily for you, the Grand Big Mac and the Grand Big Mac Bacon are back at McDonald's, so you can spend longer with the taste you love. Served from 11 a.m. Available until the 7th of June. Participating restaurants only, subject to availability.
Dormazan Sleep Valerian Hops Oil Drops is a traditional herbal medicinal product used for the temporary relief of sleep disturbances caused by the symptoms of mild anxiety. Exclusively based upon long-standing use as a traditional remedy. Dormazan is not a sleeping pill, but easy to take liquid drops, which can help in the quest for a restorative and natural good night's sleep. Always read the leaflet. A. Vogel's Dormazan. Available at most good health food shops and chemists. Or buy online today at avogel.co.uk.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Couple of emails coming to talk about neighbours and about landlords as well, talking about the idea of working from home. Scott in Irvine in North Ayrshire, I can't believe your argument in respect of working from home, comparing a cleaner to someone who can use a laptop. Working from home is not new. It happened before the pandemic. All the pandemic did was highlight the possibilities. We don't get upset if someone works weekends or weekdays or say it's not fair, so why working from home or not? Meanwhile, I like this one from Ella in Tuscany. My neighbour over here in Italy has had her niece working from home from the UK for the last 18 months. She's a civil servant. She's had a computer, desk and ergodynamic chair paid for by British taxpayers to enable this, her work colleagues. Others she knows work from Poland and Prague. There we go. I mean, she's working in Tuscany. I mean, it's incredible that you all accept. It's remarkable. Let's go to other matters, the lunacy that could be this new neighbours law. Mike in Camden, what do you want to say to that idea, Mike? Good morning.
Hello there, Nick.
Hello,
Thanks for my call. A couple of things very quickly. I think this new neighbours law will be modified before the time if it ever becomes law. I think it's a great headline, but the changes that will be necessary to make it palatable, I think, will kind of modify it quite substantially with a lot of caveats.
What sort of changes? What sort of changes do you think are required?
Well, I think if there are certain building changes, for example, necessary because, because people have to work from home. For example, I'm just putting on top of my head, or for people's medical conditions require that they need extra facilities built into their house or their garden to make accessibility more easy for them. I think those sort of things won't be challenged. I think, for example, if they need to put in I'm just making this up at the top of my head, but a parking bay, for example, if they need mobility scooters or parking done. So I think, provided it's not vexatious litigation or vexatious sort of complaints, I think that will be, there'll be a middle ground reached. But my actual issue, I did actually have a slightly different variation on the issue of landlords, which I think is important.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I think this government it's a long way off of satisfying, leaseholders and people that have been facing the cutting price Safety Bill Act, the Building Safety Act, which now will become in June. I think there's a whole series of gaps still in that, and this out-and-out attack on buy-to-let landlords who actually take up a lot of slack that the government otherwise would have to provide is going to come back and bite the Tories. I mean, this exclusion of small-scale pensioner landlords who've got, say, 3+ properties from protection. I mean, that is going to be that is going to be something which is going to come back and bite the Tories at the next election.
Thank you for that. We shall see how it develops. Sorry to talk over you, but you led me neatly into more on the conversation of landlords with Rosemary and Walthamstow. Rosemary, tell me your story then. You had a flat that you rented out. Is that correct?
Hi, Nick. Thanks for taking my call. I'm on my way home from work, having just done a night shift, and I'm listening to the programme and spitting bullets. I got married a few years ago and had my own flat and rented it out and moved into my husband's home. We later on got divorced, and when I tried to get my flat back, I couldn't get my tenants out. Their excuse was they really like the flat and they think I want to just sell it and make money, so they don't want to move out. I nearly became homeless, Nick.
There you go.
And
Unbelievable.
I had to go and rent another flat for myself, put all of my stuff in storage, pay for that as well, and had to fight to get them out, which took me nearly 2 years.
How much did that cost you? How much money do you reckon you lost in the whole process?
Thousands. At least.
And this new law is going to make it even... I mean, good job you did it. I'm very sorry your marriage didn't work out, but good job you did it when you did it, because this new law could potentially make it even more difficult for you.
That's why I wanted to share my opinion. I think it's ludicrous. I have the utmost sympathy with tenants who have got what I would call rubbish landlords.
Indeed.
Yeah? But equally, people need to have sympathy for the landlords who are doing things right, maintaining the property, and when you want the property back, it's a major headache. Major headache.
Rosemary, have a good time off now. You've put in your shift. Thank you for that. And you've put a very eloquent case. I interrupt you because you're listening to LBC News Breaking at this time, 9:56. Good news, I'm delighted to tell you. Those twin girls, Gracie and Millie Bennett, who were reported missing from their home in Leicestershire, we covered in the first hour of the show, have been found. Safe and well, it says here. They went missing last night. Police issuing an appeal for information of the public anyway. They came from a village south of Loughborough. They've been found. I don't have more details than that. But the fears there, fortunately, will not be realised. Let's talk more about landlords. Joe in Rushton. Joe, what do you want to say? Good morning.
Hi. So I want to kind of bring the counter view a little bit on behalf of tenants, because when you've got a situation where millions of people are facing cost of living, and the hardest hit of those are usually people who are renting a property, they're not on a housing market, to be faced with the prospect of eviction has such a high consequence.
But you heard the call from Rosemary just now.
Yeah.
She couldn't get into her own home. That can't be right.
I mean, it's hard, but it's also...
No, it's not hard. It's wrong.
I mean, it's also a difficult situation to put tenants when within 2 months they've got to find an extra month's rent, a large deposit on top of the bills that they may be facing.
That woman, Rosemary's marriage fell apart. Rosemary's marriage fell apart, which is most unfortunate. She wants to move back. She spends thousands of pounds and waits 2 years before she can get... That cannot be right. You must accept that.
I would accept that. I think there's an element where there needs to be better systems in place to sell with sitting tenants, or to help alleviate.
Why should she take a hit on the? Let's say her flat was worth 250. I'm just making a figure.
Right.
Why should she take a hit of 100 grand because she's got sitting tenants? Why should she do that?
I mean, I don't think that's right either. But then at the same time, there does need to be protection, because when you've got people who are living hand to mouth, month to month, and they've suddenly got to find essentially another month's worth of expenses, all with like 2 months' notice, otherwise they face homelessness, that's also not very fair.
Joe, I will leave it there. I'm grateful for your input. You had the last word. Apologies to William, Josh, Neil and others, but we are done for another day. Coming up tomorrow, obviously, reports with the Prime Minister as he comes to Finland and meets with his Finnish counterpart, having been to Sweden as well, edging those closer to NATO. That'll be in tomorrow's show. I'm done for today. James O'Brien is the other side of the news on LBC. I'm back with you from London tomorrow morning from 7. Meantime, stay safe.
Thank you, Nick. The time is approaching 10 o'clock, and it's a bit of a tricky morning, this. It's a little hard to pick what is of most concern. The cost of living crisis utterly ignored yesterday in the Queen's speech, and of course, almost inevitably, a little later in the day, Boris Johnson promised something was on the way and then got slapped down by the Treasury, who revealed that it was the first they'd heard of it. But hey-ho, of course, compared to the unravelling situation in Northern Ireland, the cost of living crisis could be described as a short-term catastrophe, as opposed potentially to a long-term one, and sundry other things that demand our attention, including something that's just popped up in front of me, and it is people appearing to celebrate the opening of a food bank. I think we might talk about that.
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 10 o'clock, Michael Gove has rejected calls for an emergency budget to deal with the growing cost of living crisis. The Levelling Up Secretary says Boris Johnson's suggestion that further support would be announced soon has been overinterpreted.